Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life.
Welcome to Daily Influence, where we explore the stories of individuals making a positive and responsible impact in their communities and industries. I'm your host, Gregg-Brooke Koleno, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Lynn Roberts. She's the newly appointed program manager at the Pete DuPont Freedom Foundation. Lynn brings a wealth of experience and entrepreneurship, program management, and strong commitment to fostering innovation and free enterprise. Her diverse background includes roles at Agilent Technologies and active participation in initiatives promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. Join us as we delve into Lynn's journey and insights on leadership, vulnerability, and creating meaningful change. Lynn, welcome to Daily Influence.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast and share a little bit about my background and overall my positive experience I've had within entrepreneurship and the DEI space overall.
Lynn, can we start with you sharing a bit about your background and what led you to where you are today with our listeners?
Yes. So like any entrepreneur, I had a bunch of twists and turns, no straight path forward. I actually was very, very heavily interested in molecular biology, biotechnology, all of that fun stuff when coming into the University of Delaware. That's what I actually went into the University of Delaware as a molecular biology and biotechnology major, a mouthful. But that was really where my interest lied. I wanted to do nanoparticle technology research, wanted to work with the head of the department with cervical cancer cells. And I really wanted to make a difference in that way, kind of on the side of innovation when it comes to science and technology for sure. And then I also came into the University of Delaware as a Delaware Innovation Fellow. And with that, we had to take a couple of classes within entrepreneurship. And I actually was a guinea pig for one of the first, now they call them Entre X classes. But with my high school, we were one of the first guinea pigs to kind of trial out this dual enrollment class. And this is kind of how I got my start into entrepreneurship. With entrepreneurship, there's no rubrics in the class. Everything's kind of determined by you and your work ethic. And this kind of changed my mindset, especially coming from a school that was very heavily STEM based. And this is where I kind of got to expand my mind into different areas of innovation and really where my passion and interest lies. And so later on, I guess a year later, when I was able to take some more entrepreneurship classes, this is where I really got to dive into, do I want to stay in science? Do I like technology? What other things interest me? And that's how I kind of got involved with the startup side of things and really doing this deep dive. So I was able to take a startup experience class with Vince DeFelice, an amazing professor. I believe he just won another award at the University of Delaware. Very, very well deserved. But he was very instrumental to me really doing this deep inflection into my life and what I really cared about. And I kind of took from my background. I grew up with a Bulgarian best friend, and learning from her culture kind of prompted me to go on my own path of starting my own startup and getting people connected with through culture and all of these other great things within the DEI space. So hence, I started working on a startup at the time. So we first wanted to do some type of coffee shop that morphed into where people could have their DEI workshops at the time in like the height of 2020. Then we pivoted again to actually doing these lunch and learn styles. I really wanted to focus on connecting small, diverse businesses with corporate companies and corporate entities and making sure this is a really great exchange of culture. And then we pivoted again. And I guess my last pivot was with moving my major from molecular biology to management information systems. I wanted to create a tech platform, a SaaS platform, in order to facilitate the connection between diverse, marginalized groups and small business owners. So think Black owned, LGBTQ owned, et cetera, with corporate companies in order to really make good on their promises within the DEI space. So instead of using Chick-fil-A, you're using your local taco shop or Vietnamese restaurant to do catering. You're using your local candle company to do corporate incentives for gift baskets, all of those great things, and then the data and analytics and all the tracking behind it to track that impact and really put the dollars where they said they were going to. So that's a little bit about my background. I also worked on the tail end. First I competed in a couple of pitch competitions, won semifinals for that, but wanted to get my feet wet in the world of corporate. So that's when I made this transition to Agilent Technologies. I worked for the certified pre-owned group. And that's where I really got involved with the sustainability side of things, sustainable packaging. I worked with my colleague, Adam Manolakis, and we worked on really trying to bring this project to life from design to procurement to technological implementation. And that's where that and a new other program kind of emerged as well. So, and there's been various other little consulting opportunities. I know we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the vulnerability workshop stuff, but yeah, a lot of great twists and turns along my path thus far. So that's a little bit about my background.
Thank you for sharing that, Lynn. You certainly have had a unique background. During your tenure at Agilent Technologies and being involved in the sustainable packaging initiatives, how did this experience shape your perspective on corporate responsibility and innovation?
I think for me, especially because I had worked at a lot of smaller companies in the past, and this is my first step into corporate, it was enlightening because you now see these layers that you have to go through with red tape in order to get some type of innovative solution kind of at the top and then getting the support for that. But I had the pleasure of kind of coming in on the tail end of this project that Adam had already kind of created. So he had already kind of cut through a lot of that red tape. And so when I got there, I was able to just run with it. But I also appreciated the work that he had done and the fact that it takes so long to kind of get those projects to light and get the buy-in. And so I really just valued one, I guess, holistically, how you have to incorporate every single department and stakeholder when you're trying to bring a project like that to life and trying to get all of the buy-in. And two, that innovation can really happen at a corporate company. They actually had another, I'll say like a pitch competition, if you will, an innovation competition at Agilent. They're really cool for that. But yeah, so we wind up submitting it. I think we made it to the second round as well. So they're a company that values innovation. And so I really appreciated that. And then moving on to other roles, seeing the comparison of how fast you can move and what stakeholders you need the buy-in from really just influenced how I move for other innovative projects in the future.
Thanks for sharing that. When you worked on a startup in the DEI space, can you tell us more about that experience and how it's shaped your approach to leadership and team dynamics?
Yes, absolutely. So when I was working on my startup, I was actually a part of this program called Summer Founders. So you're actually getting paid to work on your startup during the period of the summertime and working with CEOs through the Horn Network. One day is the nice guy day, they like to say, and then the next day was the not so nice guy, which are really hammering down on the data, the statistics, the ROI, all of those great things of your startup and how it can actually have this product to market fit. And so working in the DEI space taught me a lot about when you have a problem such as DEI and how it's going to be implemented. And there's so many different views and perspectives on the way it can be implemented or how effective it is. Making sure that you have the ROI or you're adapting to what people actually care about is, I think, directly correlated to the way that I kind of view leadership as well. And it has made me a more effective leader. And especially since going through the Leadership Delaware winter series, I actually got to see some of that in action and some of that knowledge come to light. So you're definitely adapting to the different values of people and seeing in which way you can work with them in order to produce the kind of product that they want for the product market fit. So for the SaaS platform I was creating, it wasn't directly for suppliers of diversity. It was also for middle level management and trying to increase their spending and their dollars when it comes to supporting small businesses. So just not at the preferred vendor level for like larger scale things, but also, like I mentioned before, with spending at your like local restaurants for team building events and dinners and things like that.
You developed a vulnerability workshop in Australia. What inspired this initiative, and how has it influenced your perspective on leadership and team dynamics?
Yeah, so I actually got to go to Australia, I believe a couple years ago now, and I worked with a great professor, Nat Measley, and he has his own business, Your Culture Design, and he's worked for a company and owned stake in a company called the Fun Department. And so that's where I really got this kind of tiptoe into leadership and vulnerability as well, because he was working with leaders at the time, because he was seeing that when leaders can be fun and vulnerable, what kind of impact that can have on your work culture. And I was seeing that when the top leadership can be vulnerable from a DEI perspective or what they cared about, how that can impact where you want to see the company going in the future for DEI. So we kind of had this overlap there. So we wind up traveling to Australia. And in addition to the classwork, he was like, hey, Lynn, do you want to develop a vulnerability workshop and kind of trial it out with the students? And so we were there for a micro program for 3 weeks. And during those 3 weeks and traveling to a new country, especially Australia, where there's a lot of maybe anxiety built up about where you're going, will there be very large bugs? Like, how do I navigate the city? We had a really great bond on that trip. So I think the workshop worked out really, really well. We had great experience and a dynamic share of students in the group who really did buy into the vulnerable background. And it was very interesting the way that we put on the workshop, because myself, I told a story of which had a very vulnerable point. And then the professor, Nat Measley, also did as well. And so this kind of it was a very cool case study on trying to get the ball going when it comes to vulnerability. And when I looked for a job, I guess a couple years later, and now the job that I'm at now, I was really looking for a leader where I could see the ins and outs of their day-to-day and then being human. I feel like a lot of times when you're working for a larger corporate company, we oftentimes take the human element out of that for KPIs and ROI and all those great things. But at the end of the day, I'm a person that really believes that humans are human. And there's a lot of great things that make us tick, and buying into the things that make us emotional and vulnerable only makes us more powerful for the things that we believe in. And that kind of goes on the passion side of leadership as well.
Can you tell us about a moment or experience where you felt you made a positive impact on someone's life?
Yeah, I actually, in the last couple of months, I wind up talking about my experience at the Pete DuPont Freedom Foundation and getting involved with all of their innovative initiatives. And I guess my takeaway from the presentation that I presented to high school students was make sure that when you're networking, everybody kind of stresses that you should always follow up. And I had one kid after the presentation, or student, I should say, follow up with me. And then I have been able to kind of mentor him a couple different times. And that was a great experience. And then oftentimes now, when I'm asked, I'll kind of go back to Horn entrepreneurship and just talk about my experience within the innovation community within Delaware and beyond, and how I've kind of been able to navigate that. And I think that students really do appreciate seeing somebody who can be so honest with them about how tough it can be balancing schoolwork, but how it is really, really rewarding for your future career in terms of mindset or just general buying into your own passions and have that being a thing as well. So I would say those two in terms of the student standpoint.
Thank you for sharing that, Lynn. In your new role as program manager at the Pete DuPont Freedom Foundation, how do you plan to foster an environment that encourages innovation and supports entrepreneurs from marginalized backgrounds?
there's really great ties here. And one of the reasons that I came to the Pete DuPont Freedom Foundation specifically was Stephanie Johnny and her kind of mindset on entrepreneurship, as well as Dan Freeman just coming from the Horn background as well. So when it comes to innovation and product market fit and all of those great things, really listening to the entrepreneurs and what their needs are and adapting the programming as such is really how you continue to foster this innovation. So when we see that entrepreneurs really need access to capital, not necessarily hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans, but maybe they need micro grants, we've now pivoted and we're offering things like an E3 wallet in order for them to take advantage and get little things like pitch decks created, business plans, et cetera. And I think continuing to listen to what the market needs, in our case, the entrepreneurs, is really how you continue to give back. And then to the other part of that would also be this huge equity piece as well. So making sure that we're understanding our customers, again, the entrepreneurs, in the way of if they don't know something, then we have to create the programming or find the resources that they might not otherwise know, and also be able to articulate and communicate that to them in a way that they're able to understand in order to empower them in a way too. And I think this has been it's definitely a problem that comes up when dealing with entrepreneurs in general, is because you have entrepreneurs and I'll say small business owners coming from a wide variety of backgrounds. Not everybody has an MBA. Some people have small mom and pop shops, and everybody deserves this chance at having or buying into free enterprise. And just understanding that you can be a successful entrepreneur even if you don't have the Harvard business degree. You can have a successful, scalable business, even if you want to have your mom and pop shop. So just making sure you have the access to resources as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Lynn, what message or words of encouragement would you like to share with our listeners who aspire to make a positive difference in the world?
One, it is never too late or too early to learn a new thing or to start something new. There's been a time where I've kind of stopped and started my startup and kind of found passion in that. And maybe I'll start it up again in the next couple of weeks, who knows? But I think that sometimes people get too bogged down into timelines and what the expectations are for their life. And it's just important to note that the only person you're competing with is yourself. And so you kind of got to go where your passions lie and then kind of put your best foot forward in that regard.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that, Lynn. Lynn, if our listeners want to learn more about PDFF or get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, so I would definitely visit our website at the Pete DuPont Freedom Foundation.org. And then also you could reach out to me at Lynn at the Pete DuPont Freedom Foundation.com.
We'll put all that information in the show notes. Lynn, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your stories and advice. I'm so grateful you were able to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. It was a pleasure to be a part of the Daily Influence. And if anybody wants to reach out, I'm more than welcome to have a conversation.
And to our listeners, thank you for listening to Daily Influence. If today's episode inspired you, share it with someone who could use a little positivity. And don't forget to like and follow the show so you never miss an episode. Keep leading, growing, and making a positive impact one day at a time. Bye-bye.